Joy Harrington, and I am your host. Let's talk about spiritual bypassing versus mindset work and how to balance honoring feelings while moving forward. We've heard people say, like, you can't just think positive because that's ignoring what's really at hand. And you've heard other people say, like, everything is just your mindset and how you choose to look at things. And so, how do we walk along in life? And how do we honor the journey and be real about what's going on while also being sovereign and choosing how we want to view things and choosing that in an empowering way that serves us? That is where the magic sauce lies. And that's what I really help people do. And that's what I really want to help you do today on this podcast episode, because this is something that I've been having to lean into very hard over the last 8 weeks since having and losing Sterling. So let's talk about this today. And what does this really look like? So the first time I really got taken out in life by something really hard was when we walked through our marriage story 7 years ago. And I've shared that a lot on this podcast. If you haven't heard it, you can go back to episode number 1. When we went through our marriage story, that was my first big rock bottom in my life. And it took me out. And it took me out for a long, long time. And when I say it took me out, what I mean is grief took me out and took me over and overtook my entire life, right? I felt like I was drowning every single day and I could not even come up for air. I was suicidal. I was depressed. I was literally like on the couch, letting my kids, who were babies at the time, like destroy the house around me, right? I had enough sense about myself to take care of my children, but everything else, no. I was so consumed by these emotions and by grief and by the constant thoughts running through my head of like, this isn't fair. This shouldn't have happened. How could he do this to me? I shouldn't have to do this, right? Like, this is his fault. Now I'm a messed up person because of him. Like all of this stuff, right? Just constantly running through my head, and the why did this happen? God, why did you allow this? Why did I marry him? Why did we do all of this, right? The constant why. It kept me just circling and cycling around all these negative emotions, right? The negative emotions of anger and fear and depression and sadness and all of that. Nothing wrong with these emotions. And I hate calling them negative because I don't want to give them a bad reputation. However, when you choose to live in that place 24/7, that's who you're going to be. Right? Like that's going to be your only experience. You're not going to experience joy and love and transformation and other positive things too. And for me personally, it felt like I couldn't give myself permission to have the positives. I only could have the negatives because look at how bad this was. And when I had those moments of feeling positive, it's almost like I would shut them down because I was like, no, we can't forget this happened. Right? Like we can't, because that's moving on. I'm not okay with moving on. I'm not okay with forgetting. Right? So grief took me out and it took me over and it made me a miserable, unhappy person. And I remember our counselor telling me, you need to lean into those emotions and you need to get them out of you. So I would journal like every day, right? When I felt myself churning in them, I would journal and try to get them out of me. And that did give me some temporary release, I would say, but it did not get me out of them. I did not know how to honor my feelings and honor what had happened while moving forward in a healthy, empowering way. Because my whole life, what I had been told was, well, don't follow your feelings because those aren't real. Act your way into feeling. And so basically my feelings had been ignored for so long and I had been unvalidated in them for so long that I was like, F this, right? Like, don't tell me these feelings aren't real and don't tell me that I have to act my way out of them and don't tell me, right? And so it was kind of the pendulum swinging real hard to the other side. And it did not serve me. It kept me very much in victim mode. It kept me very much thinking how woe was me and how terrible this was. And guess what? What you focus on, you find more of. And so I found more anger and I found more sadness and I found more reasons to be justified. And I found more ways to point the finger, right? Not saying that any of that was not valid. Not saying that any of that was wrong. I just know that I continued to feel like I was drowning, and I continued to be miserable, and I continued to be lost and really unhappy. And I felt so heavy and so down for so long. And I finally got to a point where enough was enough. And I literally drew a line in the sand and said, I finally realized he could do everything to change and I still wouldn't be happy, because that's me. And so I'm going to take responsibility and become happy for me. And I was finally ready to do that, because before I just wanted to blame him and I wanted him to fix it, because I was like, you did this, so you fix it. And finally I was like, I'm still not okay with what he did, and I'm still angry at him for it. And I'm still angry that this is his fault. And I can accept that this is where I'm at, and I can take responsibility for me. And that was my first step into learning how to take more responsibility for myself and become more empowered. Now, that led me down a very long road. It's been 7 years, got me into the world of coaching and learning about healing and learning about mindset. First, I went down the mindset road, with personal development. And then I found coaching, and I found healing and inner child healing and body work and breath work and regulating nervous systems. And this time around, with going through everything that we went through with Sterling, has been 180 degrees different than 7 years ago with grief. And I think people have even said, if I look back, right, like, I don't know how you're doing this. And I feel like saying back to them, like, dude, I don't know how I'm doing this either, except that I do, because the last 7 years, I've had to learn all of this stuff and literally put it into practice. And I basically set myself up for this. And so let's talk about what this is. Spiritual bypassing is when you want to silver line everything. And you want to use phrases like I heard, right? Which was act your way into feeling, because your feelings don't have to dictate you and your feelings aren't true. So just focus on your actions and focus on mindset, right? Just tell yourself the story that you want to tell yourself to make it serve you. And, what you focus on, you find more of, and blah, 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 blah. There are aspects of truth to that, to all of those things. They are true. That becomes spiritual bypassing when you slap that on top of a situation that was crappy and tell yourself basically, no, ignore your feelings. No, you're not actually feeling that way. You're not feeling that way because you can change this. You can just think about it differently. You can just change your mindset. You can just, right? Here's the positive. Here's the silver lining in all of it. At least this and at least that. That's spiritual bypassing. It's where you're ignoring feelings in your body and choosing to slap on something in your head, as opposed to dealing with what's going on in your body. Your brain is very powerful, and your brain can shift a lot for you, and your body never lies. So this is where the balance becomes very, very important, because on the one hand, 7 years ago, I was like, I'm not spiritual bypassing at all, and I'm going to sit in this. I'm going to sit in this crap. And it took me out, because when you choose to sit in the crap, it feels like you're basically going down into a dark hole that has no way out. And you're like, well, good luck. Like, hopefully I come out of this sometime, especially if you were not raised being taught how to feel and honor your emotions and move them through you. And most of us in this world, we're not taught that. We were not shown that by example. We were not taught that. And so we're basically like emotional toddlers. We have no sense of how to feel feelings without being taken over by them. So most of us just shut them down or turn them off, which is spiritual bypassing. So we see one or the other in life. We typically see people who are totally given in and just taken over by their emotions. They can't even think logically. They can't pull themselves out, right? They're just kind of swayed by life, and they're constantly being tossed and turned by life, right? And they're one way one day and they're a completely different way the next day, right? There's just this tossing and turning. And on the other side, we've got people that are like, nope, I'm just not even going to say that I feel that way. I'm not going to talk about it, not going to acknowledge it. I'm just going to tell myself what I want to hear, or I'm just going to keep moving, or I'm going to focus on work, or I'm going to focus on my family, or I'm going to focus on staying busy, or whatever it is. And we just like pretend that it's not there, or we don't ever go there, or we don't ever let ourselves look at it or be honest about what's going on. This time around for me has been beautiful in the fact that the last few years I've had so much practice with how to honor feelings and not spiritually bypass while not being taken out by them and dictated by them, not having my life dictated by them. And it's been absolutely beautiful and so much easier because I don't feel like I'm drowning like I did 7 years ago. I don't feel like, oh my gosh, I'm totally drowning. I don't even know who I am or where I am. I don't know how I'm going to come out of this, right? There's no light at the end of the tunnel, which is how I felt 7 years ago. So here's how you start doing that. And it takes practice because, again, we are spiritual toddlers, and toddlers learn by practicing and growing and becoming children, and then young adults, and then adults. So what that looks like, and what that has looked like for me over the last 8 weeks, has been being honest and honoring the feelings from the perspective of, hey, what's going on with me? What is going on deep down inside that I'm feeling that I'm noticing right now is coming up for me, because it's coming out in anxiety. It's coming out in the form of, having a shorter fuse. It's coming out in the form of not feeling motivated, not feeling excited, not feeling happy, right? Not feeling like my usual self. That's an indication that something's going on. All of our behaviors are always just symptoms of what's going on inside. So it's just paying attention. Hey, I'm paying attention. Am I trying to distract myself? Am I giving myself a really full schedule, right? Am I not? Like, am I just wanting to sit in bed all day and like binge or do nothing? Like what's going on with me? And practicing awareness around my own patterns, my own, ooh, I know this is me avoiding, or I know this is me numbing, or I know this is me, right? Whatever it is. And when I notice that going on, I can say, what's underneath? What are the feelings there? What needs to be felt? What needs to be moved through? And then I get to actually move it through my body. And that is the massive difference between this time versus last time. Last time I just knew how to like be in my feelings and just feel them and just be sad and just like let myself be sad all day. But here's the thing, when you let yourself be sad all day, you don't necessarily process it, number one. And number two, it's real hard to pull yourself out when you're sitting in it, right? So what it looks like to not spiritually bypass, but at the same time actually process your emotions, is to let it out in a way that actually processes. And that usually looks like getting your body involved. That looks like anger release exercises, breathwork sessions that are specifically designed for that, for somatic release, releasing emotions and trauma. It looks like movement and expression through your body, right? Very intentionally. So I'm doing that. And when you do that, you actually get the chance to process it through your body. And then after that is done, that's when you get to say, great, I've honored my emotions. I've honored my body. I've released this. Now, what is the empowering view? What's the empowering story? What's the empowering take I would like to choose to get my focus back on, right? And so then you get to go, okay, what would I like to focus on now intentionally? I've had the feelings, I've processed them, I see them, I recognize them, I moved them through. Now I'm going to shift my focus back to what would I intentionally like to focus on now to get me into that frame of mind, the mindset that I would desire to be in right now, which for me has been, what's the most empowering mindset that I can be in? Because I still want to be a great mom. I still want to be a great wife. I still want to be a great coach, right? I still want to be me. I want to be the best version of me that God made me to be, not as like a, I'm putting this on, but as in like a, that's who I am, right? That's who I am. Feelings can be so dense and so heavy and so overwhelming that we forget who we are, because we are not our feelings. We have feelings, we feel feelings, but we are not our feelings. And so that's where people either fall into the ditch of like they're totally overtaken by their feelings and they forget who they are, or they totally fall into the other side, which is just, put on a face, put on a front, put on a new mindset, be this type of person instead of like, no, be you. Be you in the truth of who you are and in the truth of what God says about you. So that's what it looks like to walk this road in a way where you healthily acknowledge your feelings, you healthily process your feelings, and you are empowered to show up in a way that serves you right now. You do not have to be sad 24/7 when you're grieving. You don't have to be taken over by grief 24/7 to be grieving. You don't have to sit in your story 24/7 to be grieving. You don't have to sit here and not have a life because that somehow honors the person that passed on or the person that you're grieving. None of those things honors the person that passed on or the person that you're grieving or the thing that you're grieving. And the first time I went through it, I was so angry. I felt like anytime I started to move on, I would get even more angry because I'm like, no, because that's us forgetting or that's us saying it's okay. No, you don't have to forget and you don't have to think it's okay and you can still move on. It's learning how to hold all of it together instead of picking one or the other. When you live in the land of it has to be this way or this way, you suffer, right? When you live in the land of right and wrong, you suffer and you make other people suffer because you're either right and they're wrong or they're right and you're wrong, right? Which is not a good place to be. So it's always about allowing all of it. How can you hold all of it? How can it be not okay? And at the same time, you're okay today. You're happy today. How can it be you're not forgetting him, you're not forgetting them, you're not forgetting what they were in your life, and you're excited for what's to come. You're looking forward at what's to come. It gets to be both. We do not have to choose. And the more that we can hold with this and that instead of this or that, the more we expand our capacity to hold more. And the more that you can hold, the less suffering you have. Because we suffer when it has to be this or that, when we cannot allow ourselves to live in the gray, when it has to be black and white. So we're constantly practicing an expansion of ourselves and what we can honor as and instead of or. I guarantee your suffering right now is because you're living in the land of or. This or that. Instead of and. It gets to be and. It gets to be and you get to move forward. You can honor your feelings and move forward. You can process your feelings and move forward and be happy today. You can have gone through something really hard and move forward. It's and. So allow yourself to observe all of it. Allow yourself to practice holding all of it. Allow yourself to move forward while seeing all of it instead of being taken out by all of it. Allow yourself to acknowledge all of it while not being owned by any of it. You are not your feelings. And you don't have to be in your feelings to honor your feelings. You can pick specific times to process your feelings, to honor your feelings, and then you can switch out of that. It is not hypocritical. It's not unhealthy. It's not, it's not wrong. Let's say that. It gets to be done in a way that serves you. You get to pick the way that serves you. And honestly, the healthiest way to move through grief or to move through a hard situation is to see the feelings, observe what's coming up, move it through you, and then choose what you're going to focus on, the story that you're going to create, the new pattern that you're going to choose, right? That you're going to implement, that you're going to integrate and go. And it's going to be a constant balancing. It's like you're walking, right? And on one step, you're going to honor feelings, move them through. On the next step, you're going to pull in the new pattern, the new belief, the new story. And you're going to go back and forth and back and forth. And that is how we grow. That is how we heal. That is how we walk through life in a way that is honoring of all of us and honors all those parts of us while growing, while changing, while asking for more. People say all the time, like, how can I honor the feelings and how can I honor all of this? And how can I like honor my inner kid, but want more? That's how you want more. That's how you honor it and want more, honor it and move forward. That's how we do both. I hope this was helpful for you today. If it was, share it with a friend and share it on Instagram. Tag me at joyharrington.ig. I would love to hear from you and hear what your takeaway was. What are you going to honor today? Are you going to lean into processing the feelings? Or are you going to lean into the new story, the new pattern you want to tell yourself? If you need help with any of that, I created the resentment trap. It's an amazing course. It teaches you a lot of the basic stuff that I do with my clients right now to help them get transformation, the things that I do for myself to help me right now as I am navigating grief. It will literally teach you things that you need to know, tools for you to have to help you process emotions physically out of your body. And you will have those tools for the rest of your life. And it will teach you, on the other hand, how to start identifying your patterns, bringing in new stories, new patterns, new beliefs. So it's going to give you the tools to do both of these things, so that you can show up in a way that is healthy, that's honoring of all of you while letting you move forward. So if you would like to check that out, it's in my link tree on Instagram. I would love to see you in the course. And I hope you have an amazing day. I'll see you back here on the show next week.